What's up, friends? We're back. Um, I guess as we've always tend to do, hang behind the curtain for a few minutes. I was trying to check on my bandwidth here, which seems to be doing okay. It got a little shaky there for a moment or two, but we'll see how it goes. If it drops, then of course, you'll notice it, and then hopefully it'll stay pretty stable. Um, for the majority of the stream. So it's a little touch and go at the moment, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, the like I said, we're doing the stream on Thursdays around this time. We get to kind of hang out. People come through. We chat it up. Yeah, so glad for y'all to come through. I saw Kyler and Chris already come through in the chat. Thanks for you. Thanks for you for coming through. And I'm just kind of monitoring the bandwidth meter here. We'll see if we need to make some adjustments, but I think we're okay for now. But yes, what are we doing today? Today we're looking at um, released a couple of new features in analog. One of them being API routes, and the other some um, updates to the file-based routing and kind of unified some of the things. Before, if you spun up a new analog app, have to you basically install the plugin separately and use you would start create a new Veep project, you would install the plugin separately, and any other additional things would be kind of considered as separate plugins. Now we're installing the analog platform package, which will give you the Veep plugin and have all that stuff set up for you. So it makes it a little easier for adding additional plugins in the future under the platform package. And then the Veep plugin itself can still be used on its own for things like if we're using it in Astro, using Angular components in Astro, that's still a thing. So that'll still be a separate thing there. So hopefully, we can kind of keep iterating on that and see how that goes. So I did want to at least there's some big news today that I did want to go over in the stream. So we'll look at that first, and then we'll spin up an analog project to see how everything's kind of congealed together. And also wanted to you have to of course when you sort of build some things you have to throw that thing at a project to see how what works and what doesn't. So looking at making a contributor using a contributor API to pull some data there and see how contributors are doing on particular projects. So we'll dive into that too. But feel free to chime in along the way, uh, and we'll see how things go from there. I did have some new followers from last time that I did not acknowledge, so hopefully I'll catch those during this stream, and we'll see how things go from there. So the first thing that we'll get into is the latest release of Angular. Angular V15 is out. I think they do the releases on they did the release on yesterday and went through all of that. So um, I guess everything went well with that. They were able to push the release out, and things were good there. Dusseldorf, appreciate you coming through. Um, thanks, Eli. Thanks you for coming through also. But yeah, like I was saying, Angular V15 is out, pretty much on schedule with every release, every kind of their 6 months or so cadence. And this is a pretty big release, I must say, as far as the number of features and things that were packed into this release. And it kind of goes through some of these things in the blog post, of course, written by Minko. The first big thing being standalone APIs are now stable. And standalone APIs for components, pipes, and directives has really been something that has gained a lot of popularity in the Angular ecosystem for good reason, because it reduced the number of things that you have to do to build an application with Angular. And standalone APIs is part of, I think it's part of a bigger effort to make Angular easier to learn. So as opposed to using modules before, now we can bootstrap applications directly. And we can also, it also create APIs, not fully across the board, but a lot of the places that needed a module, you can use those, the new APIs for those. And we'll get into some of those down a little further here. A couple of them being the router and HTTP client. And before, you can see here in the bigger here, now you can bootstrap the page with the bootstrap application and provide router, as opposed to using the router module for root pattern with ng modules from previous. And you can also do other things like lazy load routes directly from the route config, lazy load individual components, that is, from the route config. And you can also lazy load an array of routes there. So it allows you to a lot less things that you have to do to lazy load individual components, or just lazy load a set of routes, of course, with the modules being gone. Another thing that they did add for the router was tree shakeable features, in that the provide router takes a set of routes and also takes the additional features that you can add, whether it be preloading or other features that the router may need for your particular router in a particular project. But you don't have to pay that penalty or pay that cost up front just for using the router. So definitely excited about that. There's also of course, the directive composition API. Now, I think that the directives is one of Angular's like biggest strengths as far as features that allow you to like augment the HTML or augment components in your application. So this kind of takes that a step further to where you don't have to, you can kind of layer your directives on top of existing things with a little more easier, more composable way. So they provide some examples of how you can use the directive composition there and use different strategies with that. Hey, and also it does enable you to um, do new things and better things with things like Angular 3, uh, which definitely helps out with that. Some of the other things, the image directive is now stable. And this was along with some of the other things like standalone APIs. They introduced this in V14 or a version of V14 as developer preview, and now it's a lot more stable. So people can take advantage of using this image directives. That's kind of similar to the image component in like Next.js, something like that, but it's in directive form of Angular, of course. But you get some of those same features where it handles all the image loading of the images, lazy loading, and things like that. So definitely excited about that feature. And it's available as a standalone import. So we definitely want to see more of that. Another thing, like I said, this thing is packed with features. So looking at the functional router guards with tree shakeable APIs, slim down what it takes to write a guard for a route in Angular. Before, you had to use this whole thing with a class and injectable provided in root. Now you can just write a function and using that nice new inject function to inject dependencies and write functional guards that way. And we're kind of we're moving into the area of functional. I don't know if we call it. I don't want to call it functional Angular, but we're definitely moving in that direction of having a lot of these things be just functions instead of a lot more Angular specific things like using injectable on top of decorated classes and things like that. Default exports. I didn't think, I honestly didn't think they were going to land this one because they mentioned it before about the kind of the pitfalls that were happening with default exports and not being able to unwrap those. But you can now default export a lazy component, and then you can lazy load that component in your route, and it would just pick it up instead of you having to write out the full import path. Now you can just write out the path to the file itself, which is pretty nice. So those are definitely a lot of things that even some of these things that I've taken advantage of before that they have kind of baked into the platform, which is nice. Better stack traces, a very nice one. People love seeing used to seeing things like Zone.js, big blob of stack trace there, and now it's a lot more slimmed down to only targeting like some of the actual errors that you run into there. Another one of the big ones, releasing material design components for web. I'm not that familiar with like the whole effort here, but you can, of course, you can find out more within the blog post about aligning more with the material design spec and all the changes that went into that. So I'm sure that there, of course, there's a migration here that will do the necessary things to your workspace or project to help you move along there. So a lot more things with the CDK that you can do. Here's another good one, and this kind of ties into what we'll get into next with analog improvements in experimental ESBuild support. ESBuild is definitely an underlying tool between many different projects. Even like Angular is starting to use it now, and Vite uses ESBuild under the hood. Remix uses ESBuild to build the bundles and everything, and it definitely helps with speeding up the pipeline. And so they've improved on that builder, adding watch support and support for Sass and other things. So definitely a thing to check out there. And I'm actually using some of the compiler plugin for the ESBuild in analog too. So gonna definitely get a chance to take advantage of some of that too. Automatic imports and language service. That's pretty nice. Of course, we're moving to the new standalone world, and definitely do want to make another video about what this new world looks like for Angular with standalone components and how the tooling kind of helps improve with that. Now, CLI improvements, polyfills using are being able to generate a new standalone component within the Angular CLI or schematics, and support for a different way to register polyfills as opposed to having to use a polyfills.ts file. Always glad about community contributions there. More deprecations. They deprecated some things that I don't think they ever really got a chance to use. One of them being provided in any and provided in ng modules, just because I think they were like I said, they weren't being used that much, and they were kind of confusing in some cases. It was easy to jump into like circular dependencies there. And so deprecating those two things will at least help people move off of that one. Then of course, they are moving away from Angular Flex layout. We'll see if as things go, we'll see if the Hero Devs people pick this up and kind of continue to carry the torch for that project and see where it goes from there. Because I know it still has a good number of people that are like downloading it. And so we'll see what's coming on next after this one. This one was packed with features, lots of functions and things. So we'll continue to see what's going on there. And I do want to add in one more additional thing here that we recently opened up an RFC for in the NGRX project is functional effects. So if you think of how you create effects today, you use a class. If we scroll down here, you use a class, and you have your injectable, and you have your create effect, and your constructor. You inject all these things. So we're looking to kind of follow the same pattern with classes or effects in NGRX, to where you can have, we'll call them standalone effects, but you could just create an effects file and export these effects individually as functions, functional effects. That's what we're at least calling them for now. So functional effects, and you still register them the same way, but now there's not a class that you have to wrap it in and that sort of thing. So, and it's a little more isolated to where you can only focus on that one particular thing. So this, we'll see about if what the breaking changes are, if any, but the response to this has definitely been positive there. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, this, like I said, wanted to go over the new Angular v15 updates, and I'm looking forward to trying it out more. Of course, the ecosystem will move along the way, and then we'll see what new things come after v15, because the train is still rolling. So we'll see what happens after that. And I see we got some new people in the chat. JVA, what's up? Biohazard, does the inject function breaks? Does the inject function break the testing DI approach? How to mock the service, e.g., a class A service inject service? Chow said, can we have inline effects? What do you mean by inline effect? I think I know where you're going with this one, but what do you mean by inline effects? Do you mean something like inline effects in the component class? Or because I know you had something to where, I think you had a prototype or something where you could put the effect basically in the component, and it kind of lived there, that sort of thing. So I'm not sure if that's what you're referring to or something different. You have to let me know. But Biohazard, it does make you rely more on, um, it does make you rely more on the test bed, I would say, because if you're using the inject function, you don't really have a way to hook into that function directly to override it. So you have to use like the test bed, like running context. I think that's the new API that's out there for that you can be able to use there. Inline effects go into the array. Interesting. I think that I don't know if you'll be able to like inline a single effect on its own. But using because the way effects work today is like it's still an object that has like classes, or object that has properties on it that are effects. So you still like having to like export an object and pass that to provide them. But like doing a single effect on its own, I'm not sure if we'll support that or not, unless you want to mock inject. Yeah, you would have to like do the whole import star as ng from Angular core and mock inject that way. You may be able to do it that way, but using I know how Josh feels about the test bed, but using the test bed is probably going to be the path of least resistance on that. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see how much of the you have to lean into, or have to do with the test bed, going forward, if more people start using inject. I saw Jason doing this, who does Angular streams on Twitch regularly, and he was saying, and he started to use inject everywhere, and I chimed in the chat, and I was inject all the things. So we'll see. Stream lags too much to live, watch live, but always enjoy content and catch it later on. Hey, I appreciate that. Um, I try to do these as consistently as I can. So I like to keep it going. I like interacting with the chat and community and everything. So I appreciate that. So let's see. So we'll see. I need to come up with. I'm gonna try to chop some of this up and maybe I have to have to straighten up a little for the videos and things. But we'll try to. My hoodie's like all over the place today. Hoodie and shirt for that matter. We'll try to see if we can chop that up into a clip and post it there. And I got to come up with a thumbnail. That's it. You got to come up with a thumbnail for the people on the YouTubes. So we'll see. Yeah. So we got that. I guess we'll call that this week in Angular news. Um, I didn't mention the beta for NGRX, but that beta is out there. You can go try it. We suggest you do before we go RC and final. So we'll see how that goes. But yes, Angular v15. Also, still continuing to work on. Switch over to here. Also, still continue to work on analog. I need to update the docs actually because we actually landed these two features pretty recently, so they're no longer upcoming. They're in progress, and you can try them today and see how they work. And we'll still have, of course, still have some more docs to do around those, but the those features are out there. And I did land something that was, I don't know, sort of interesting this morning for analog. If we open up this one, go to PRs. I did land a change for named index routes, which one of the biggest things with using file-based routing systems is if you're using something like Next.js 13 or um, even Remix or some of the other ones, Solid.js, I think most of them do the same thing as far as how you set up your structure for parent routes and child routes. And you have to use these index files for those. When the Angular team gets rid of Zone.js, that is a good question. It is on the roadmap. Well, okay, let's take a step back. Let's go to the roadmap. Angular.io. As you can see, I typed this in regularly. Angular roadmap. Now the question is, when are they getting rid of Zone.js? Uh, the answer is it is on the roadmap. And for those who don't know, Zone.js is Angular's like underlying change detection mechanism to see when it needs to re-render when things like click events happen in or HTTP requests. It basically hooks into all the browser APIs and lets you know when events happen so that it can do something interesting with those. I think at one point they were trying to like get Zone.js like basically baked into the browser. So you could have an API to interact with some of these browser events that happen. But I'm supposing that didn't end up going anywhere. But to get back to the question, it is on the roadmap to improve runtime performance and make Zone.js optional. There are projects out there today, such as RX Angular, RX Angular, which is doing a lot of this work today to where they offer you things that you can use to go fully zoneless today for like really high performance applications that really want to like opt out of Zone.js because they want to eke out every bit of performance that they can. in that for their project. So going fully zoneless to have packages for the template, and some of these packages overlap with uh, things that we have in NGRX. Michael Lackey was the original creator of the NGRX component package. And since then, like Marco's gone and done a lot of awesome work on that, kind of keeping it up to date, updating the code and everything. But he's also gone, Michael has also gone on to create a lot more packages with this also. Um, but all with the purpose of letting you basically go zoneless and opt out of Zone.js. And if we go back to like standalone components, today, when you bootstrap a standalone application, you still need to use a module at the root because it doesn't have a way for you to bootstrap and opt out of Zone.js within a standalone application. Now, I think this is coming soon, so we'll see how this continues to evolve. But at least that's where we are today. So going back to Zone.js, I know that there are projects out here that don't use Zone.js today, and I don't know if they use Arcs Angular or not, but I know that there are projects that have completely opted out of Zone.js already. So we'll see what the official support for that looks like. Searching for UI lib that supports zoneless ng projects. Yeah, so there, like I said, there are a couple of projects out there. NGRX.io, we have NGRX component, which has the let directive and the push pipe that lets you use this within zone or zoneless applications. And like I said, there's also Arcs Angular, who kind of takes this the next step forward and provides more packages like the let directive and even like RX4. I believe there are ones that are RxIf, and lets you opt in at more of a granular level on how much Zone.js you want to use or none at all. So those are ones I would definitely recommend there. But yes, going back to what I was mentioning, index routes. Someone mentioned that the Solid.js team was looking at using named index routes where you can use this syntax here for your route name as opposed to the original syntax where you use index files to denote index routes. So here. So it did land this change in analog to where you can use routes that are enclosed in parentheses to denote index routes. And we'll basically just empty that path so you can use that there. So we'll see. I think it's a pretty cool feature. It's also like a good balance between the two that you can use for that. So it did land that PR. And it is in the latest version of release of analog. So definitely check that out. And there's some docs in here too for it, I believe. The docs deployed. Yep, defining routes, index routes. So I did actually add this to the docs so that you can try that out and give us some feedback at least. But yes, I believe the original idea, I haven't seen this in the Solid Start code base yet, but I believe it was an idea that was being kicked around. So I think it was pretty good idea. So with that, let's spin up. Will analog support SSR? Yes, it will support SSR. Let's go back to the repo here. We go to issues. Yeah, and some of these things I have been looking at creating examples first, and then we kind of see how the integrated a little further to polish things up, have it a more integrated experience. But yes, I have shown that you can use analog and Angular within an SSR project. But the goal is to have it just be part of the regular development process if you want to use SSR. So interesting of creating an example implementation with Nest.js. What are these middlewares used for? Okay, cool. I have to take a look at that um, again. But yes, the goal is that it would be that you could use it with um, Nest.js, or if you want to use, like, we're using Nitro as the basically the server engine. This also powers Nuxt and the API routes and analog. So we'll look and see what we can do to further support that. So let's see. I had a. Oh, I'll bring this one up really quickly here. In the last stream, we looked at supporting, seeing what it would take to use TanStack Router in Angular. So I had an example of that one. I think I was going to push this one up on a repo somewhere so that people could try it out, but at least there's an update on that. I did figure out how to do the rendering for TanStack Router and to render the child components, child routes, and everything the way it structures it. So I'll have to push that up, and you can check that out too. How to integrate analog into an NX project? Good question. You're just throwing me all the throwing me all the softball questions here. I will bring up this GitHub repo because I just did this recently and it should still be working. I do have a project here, a repo here called analog in NX15. Paste that in the chat. That you can try. This was last month, but you can update this to the latest, and everything should still work there. So I'll probably look at updating this repo to the latest version of NX also. So just have like a reference point, and we'll see how that goes. But yes, you can use NX and analog together. And the NX team is working on has already landed the initial work for a Vite executor. Go to NX. Where we want to look from here. 15.1. 15.1.1 is bug fixes, but 15.1.0, we scroll to all the features. You can see that they landed the initial version here. That this isn't published on NPM yet, so you can't technically use this, but it is in progress, and I am looking forward to using it. So shout out to the NX team for that. So yes, I had a project analog Nitro. I was trying to look for workspace that I know I had recently open. Let's see. Analog platform. I believe that's what it was. I did have a project that I was working on here just to test everything out, which I definitely need to automate this some. But lock, and I remove this because this should be installed with the analog package itself, analog platform package. And see, we can using I know what version Vite is up to now. 3.2.4. Okay, cool. Three point two point four. And if Yarn dev. If I don't have anything else running here. Vite and Angular. That works. So we have our component here. And we got main. And what will happen with the next version is that we will have, or with the latest one is we'll include all the router and everything in with this template. I thought I had the template included in here, but I'll check real quick. Analog app. Packages, create analog. Template application. Platform, yep, that's there. Main, okay. I did not update the template itself to include the router package, but I did add the routes there. So I have to put in a fix for that, but that doesn't stop a new person from using the project. So we have providers and provide file router for that. And you can also add the new Angular feature. So it'll give you both of those things there. But out of the box, this will give you import of router outlet. And we can drop this in here. And app component. Well, it should still be working there. Go ahead and create a file called folder called routes. And we can even try the new thing here, home.ts. If it doesn't work, then we'll have something to fix. Selector, home, template, welcome, export default. And you do have to export default class, export each component, but you don't have to try to guess what your export is. You can still use of course a descriptive class name. But we have home. And we'll stop this one and restart for the first one. And see if we have our routes here. Yep. Just digging in here to see what we have. Put a breakpoint here. Okay, cool. We got our routes there. Oh, children. And I know what I missed here. Standalone. All the routes in analog router have to be standalone. So there you go. Welcome. So yeah, it's a pretty quick run through of file-based routing, even using the named index route. So definitely looking for some feedback on that. So definitely check that out. Let's check the Twitch here. There we go. Make sure our bandwidth is good there. Looks like we're good. Cool. So another thing that we did land is API routes. And API routes, here we have the source app folder, and we have a source server folder here that you can put your API routes in. So I will create a folder called v1 because it's already prefixed with API. So we'll name this one products. I will name this one hello. That'll be easy enough. Hello.ts. And then we'll export. Maybe it's define event handler default. Hello. Import event handler. Like I said, this is using Nitro under the hood here. So that should be enough for me to have an endpoint. Oh, it should be server. That's what I missed. It should be routes. There we go. And then we have v1. And we could put v1/hello in there. And now we have a route. So if we go back to our app here, API v1/hello, we'll see hello. Debugger. So it's just a quick way to build API routes directly into your application. And these API routes can be deployed to many different providers and everything, but we'll have more, of course, have more docs and more guidance on things like that. So, like I said, we'll have to update the docs and provide some things there to show people how to use the new features. So way you can build your own small API endpoints directly in your app instead of having to go reach, for something immediately. And you can always, update to something newer if you need to. And this event handler is coming straight from this H3 project, which is part of the Nitro/UnJS collaboration, I guess. But yes, API routes, file-based routing, the two most recent things in analog that we'll be continuing to iterate on. But yes, I mentioned before about wanting to start a new. I don't know how I feel about having the route named home. Interesting. What would you call it instead? Now this does not, I will note that this does not prevent you from using the old way. If you want to just have this as index, still, that will still work. You'll still be able to use that for your index route. So either one of those options will work. But if you want to give it a named index, you can do that too. But yeah, you can name it. You could call it. You could keep it index if you, like I said, keep it index if you wanted to. That will still work. Now I was trying to decide whether to do away with the index routes altogether, but I guess we'll see how the usage goes, and because it's not that much effort to use either one. But yeah, let me know what you would use in place of the root route not being home, if that's the case. So we got SSR. One project that I did want to kind of throw this at. If anybody has any other suggestions, I'll be glad to hear those also. But the root, or the project that I was looking at was this contributor.info, and this is something that we've been looking at on OpenSauce. Contributor.info, It's pretty straightforward. It's discover who's contributing to open source, search repositories, you submit, and then it shows you some information about the contributors for a project. And you can look up for, like, if it's pretty bare bones at the moment, but we could look up NGRX/platform, get some data, show some recent contributors, and this may just be hitting the it's just hitting the open source API that we're using for contributors. So we'll see if I think this is a Next.js app, so we can look at building something like this in analog. I think I'd leave index just for the root route and parentheses name for nested routes. Hey, that's not a bad idea. I think that would be reasonable enough to do. Manfred, Stayer, and probably my team suggest to split the app into some multiple small libs. How to manage routes in libs features with the server side approach. Yeah, you could still. I guess there's a few ways you can go about doing that. You could have all your routes, all your components and things as like top level components, and then kind of use the routes as the last mile. So let's see if I created we can kind of walk through some of this. Created a components folder and a what do we want to call this? Test component. Test component.ts. Component. Not page transition event. Because template. I wonder now. We're gonna stay on track for now. That's not template. That should be selector app test. I will call this app page. My page. This could be your component that's, your basically your page component that's, wrapped up somewhere else, or your top level thing. So like I mentioned, you could do this a couple of ways. You could define your routes could be your top level components. Routes could be your top level components, and you define those in your routes folder, or you could create test.ts. Let's get the breakpoints out of there. So we have our index.ts and our test. And these could be your kind of your top level ones here. If we're using app.test, which I probably have to go back and fix the other one. App.test component here, and this will be standalone true. But this component will be coming from somewhere else, right? Then you have your imports, test component, and we have our app test here. So your top level route is still here. And then you have your test component, which I'm just using this as a folder here, but this could be a separate library that you could bring in and drop your component in that template there, and that'd be your top level. Everything still kind of rolls up to the top, because that's normally what you do in an NX project, is that you break things down into, like, of course, multiple smaller libraries, and then your route is kind of like your top level where you kind of bring everything together. So we may have to restart here. I'm not sure, but oops. reduce flash test if I did everything correctly. Test page. If I've saved this one or not. There we go. So, okay, so we got the test, but we're not getting our test component here. What are we missing? Selector app page. Oh, interesting. What did I put in here? App test. Okay, it told me that it wasn't there, but there we go. Test page. So that's just an example of how you could kind of bring in your components at the top at the route level if you just wanted to, if you're still using like the file-based routing approach, and using the file-based routing approach along with the kind of the NX like monorepo approach. So you have some flexibility there, whether you want to make this your top level smart component at your route level, or you want to kind of encapsulate it into a page there, into a top level component, and then bring that component into this template. So you have one more, I guess maybe one more layer of separation there. But yes, good question. So hopefully I answered, that question reasonably enough. And we'll see. Hit that button there. But yes, back to where contributor info. Discover who is contributing to open source. Let's look through. I'm going to do a Next.js stream on one of these days, but we'll see. Because I do want to try out Next.js 13 and the new stuff. To get some ideas, if anything. So we have pretty standard stuff here. PostCSS, Tailwind. I don't know if there's anything specific about this setup here yet. Okay, it does have a lot of stuff in here. Okay. Pages. Owner repo. Can't remember if this took me to owner repo or not. Contributor info. Okay, cool, it does. Owner repo, then we got API. I think this is pretty standard. Index.tsx. Use SWR. Hey, maybe I could bring in some of the other packages also, such as just plugging all the things, because that's what we do. ng-neat/query, maybe. So be maybe a good opportunity to try this one in this project, because I think it has similar functionality anyway. Inject query client service. Interesting. Use query in your service. Similar to the official hook, except the query function should return an observable. We're like wrapping all the nice things about the tan stack in Angular and exposing it as an observable. So see what we can do there. But back to here. response, DB contributors, use router.query, owner, child with SWR. Where is that? Okay, cool. Owner repo. Pretty straightforward, I would say. And of course, our main component here has styles and a click handler for handling the event. So I guess we need to set up some Tailwind, and we're not using API routes yet, so not much to do there. Oh, one thing I will try, since we are on the Angular 15 discussion here, let's see, git add, git commit. What are we trying here? Add initial routes. Probably the number one rule of streaming is you shouldn't do a lot of installing and things on stream, but I'm going to try it anyway. Angular core, Angular CLI, and Angular core. And we'll see what breaks, if anything. We'll see what a fresh new version of Angular v15 and analog does. Because I still need to update the repo to v15 also. But I don't have many dependencies here, so maybe things will just work. Maybe they'll blow up. We'll see. Either way. Could not find TS config file. Cannot run a migration to clean up relative link resolution. Could not find any TS config file. It's right there. That's okay. Remove options from Angular no longer supported. Let's see what changed. Remove browser lists. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Angular dependencies. TS config. What did it change here? ES 2022. Used to find for class fields. That is going to be a nice one that hopefully stays around for a while, to say the least. Okay, so I think we already ran yarn. Okay, cool. Yarn dev. Did we break anything? Nitro's built. My app. Welcome. Hey, we are working with Analog Works with v15 and no effort. Good job, team. Say good job to the Angular team on making the updates as seamless as possible. So, and other teams like NX team that does kind of that for Angular at scale on larger workspaces. Because I will have to update the analog repo to NX 15 when that lands, or whatever version of NX 15 that has the latest version of Angular. Cool. So let's get back to here. Contributor info, pages. Solid.js page that I mentioned before. Solid.js is pretty interesting. I really um, enjoy listening to Ryan Carniato when he's on streams and things. Um, Super smart person and definitely takes a lot of thought into everything that's going into Solid and Solid Start and everything. Um, and he also is very level headed about the whole. He is relentless about performance, but he's also very level headed about performance and competition amongst other frameworks and things. So, which I think is pretty cool. So if you're uh, looking to try something else out, you can also look at Solid Start. I'll give a plug for that one also because it has things that are pretty nice too, like file-based routing and um, other things. So we'll drop a link to that in the chat also. But yes, contributor info. Let's look up Vite and Tailwind. Installation, Tailwind CSS with Vite. Create a Vite project. Install. How do we do this? Let's stop that. Git add, git commit, Vite update to Angular 15. Yarn add auto prefixer. npx tailwind init. Okay, we got our tailwind config, post CSS. Configure your template paths. I don't think there are Angular, Tailwind. Okay, cool. Even better. I was wondering if there were Angular specific docs in Tailwind, but they are. So we're definitely going to use those. Styles.css. And we got some styles in here already. Guess we'll keep those for now. We got a duplicate in here. ng-serve. Framework guides. What's the vanilla Vite setup look like? Run dev. Let's copy that. And what do we want to take out? Let's put that at the bottom. Yarn dev. Styles CSS. Nitros. Good to go. Okay, cool. Hello world. Yeah, I know that's kind of probably threw off the styles that I had in here already, which is understandable. Let's see. HMR. Do your thing. Counter still works. Looks a little fancier at least. Let's see what's in styles for here. Globals. I'm gonna copy pasta. Oops. Sure, that works. Okay. Now we got our dark mode back. Home module. Pages. Are we using any of that in here? Styles container. We are. We've hit our first decision here. Do we want to? So we got styles here, home module. So we have our app component and we have a home route. I'm going to change this back to home just so we can continue working with that. So the decision is, do we go with inline styles, stay true to what we know, styles, and blow up the component. Didn't change anything there. Let's go into back to our pages here. Index. Well, let's see what's in the app. Anything special in here? Add contributor, SWR config. Nothing special there. So we go to our index. And we're just gonna like take this whole template out of here. And collapse the styles. And we have stolen the not stolen, taken the React template, of course. See, display flex, submit button. This handle. Guess we have to do some Angular translation here. Click equals handle submit. And we got another button here. On click handle. I'm feeling lucky. Okay, so I think this was one was actually commented out. So we'll do the same. And we'll do styles. We'll take all of these. That didn't quite work out the way I wanted it to. Styles dot. Do we want to do some regex here? Let's go for it. Styles dot star. What do we want to do? We want to group the thing here. And we want to capture that there. Down, place, styles dot container. Let's see, what is 2? Nothing. Okay, if we do $1 container, so that's correct. Class name equals main, title, etc., etc. Class name, class, and this won't be in here. I must be missing something. So why is it saying this? Okay, we'll come back to that, I guess. Okay, saying somewhere in my template. Oh, yeah, refs. Don't need that. Unescaped. Not a regular expression. Powered by. There we go. Cell. It's also not a component. Image self-closing tag. Yes. Okay. And we're almost back. So what we will do is empty out. So we just have our router outlet. Contributor info. A little off to the left. Styles host. Oh, these are probably. We'll take this out also. And what will we do next? How can we get back in the center? Footer. Styles.grid. Container. I don't think it'll make a difference if we move this into global styles, but we'll try it and see. No. keep our styles close to the component. Now, I don't know. Hey, Alexander, how are you? Thanks for coming through. We are doing some Angular here. I'm looking at redoing this contributor info page in Analog and Angular. This is a site for finding contributor information that I am picking up. Looks like this currently. Not a whole lot going on there, but enough to display a page, hit an API, and that sort of thing. So, and I'm using Angular and Analog, which is a meta framework that I am working on that has file-based routing and API routes and the whole thing. So that's what we're doing. And we don't have much here in the form of style, so it has to be something in our home route here that has our alignment off. Got a bunch of max widths. Okay, there we go. Min width looks like the Tailwind is doing that based on the um, media queries, I guess. So let's see. Go back to our template. And there we are. Now we are centered. Input placeholder. It's my text. Class BG white. Submit. Background black. Let's try green. Yes, I do prefer color scheme dark. Let's do gray so we can at least see what's happening. Because if I do, which I didn't see this in this one, it's white, but my placeholder text is not. So there must be something in here that I don't have. Nothing special in there. Tailwind config. This is probably what I'm missing. Theme, extend colors. Reload tailwind config. Let's put the container back. And our styles back. There we go. Now looks like we're good there. And we're all just kind of works with Tailwind and everything, which is a plus. Had to copy paste some things, but that's okay. And I'm guessing that helped my alignment also. I'm great. Waiting for addition to your project. Found mention on analog on Fireship. Yes. Yes, it was mentioned on the Fireship channel, which I was very surprised because the video was about Solid Start, which I mentioned earlier in the stream. YouTube, of course, I have to return the favor here. I don't know if it's Fireship IO, maybe just Fireship. There we go. Fireship. I was talking about Solid. Of course, we have to react to the video here. Angular has analog, boom, right there. I was surprised because I was just like, I was actually expecting, the Fireship channel to take a shot at Angular for not having a meta framework, but I was pleasantly surprised that they mentioned analog. But yeah, glad you found the page. So, um, yeah, I think Angular should be in this space also, which is why I kind of took on the project of trying to build this out. Yes. So, and it's always fun to, I like, of course, doing open source and things. So, definitely wanted to get something out there that people could potentially use. Tailwind.com/radix. Okay, so we have pages, owner repo. Let's do the same thing. Add, commit, add initial page. But yes, always want more people to try the project and even contribute to the project also, so we can get more stuff going there. So we got our app. Let's see what we have next. Do we have anything special on the 404 page? No, it's just a redirect. Index page. I wonder if I should use I wonder if I should use template driven forms for this input, which I probably don't need an input at all. I'm just stirring up stuff. So handle submit. We can definitely add something for that. Handle submit equals any. Okay, well we don't have a way to input to control this yet. Unless we do, like I said, unless we do like a form control or something. So let's start out with that at least. Import. Hope you can do it. I'm not ready. to create personal analog. Have a personal project I want to accomplish. I can switch to Next.js, but decided to pick Angular and then saw your project. So good luck with this. Hey, I appreciate that. Yes, definitely give the project a go and tell me what works and what doesn't. Because that's sort of the motivation on the project, at least, is like I said, there's Next.js, there's FeltKit, there's Solid Start that I mentioned. There are these other web frameworks that have, what are we searching for here? Repo string, not double quotes. But yes, there are other projects, other frameworks out here that have meta frameworks built around them that have these features, and I don't see why Angular should be excluded from this space. Now the team may not have necessarily the bandwidth to do this, but that doesn't stop the community, from trying to put something together there. So source, we'll leave that logo down there at the bottom for now. It's been a while since I've done template driven forms, I must say. ng model equals, try to put here repo, handle submit. That won't take anything. And then we can log this repo.value or this.repo. So if we come back to contributor info, got our nice fancy console log here. Type in analog.js/analog and submit. And we get our value there. So it's a start. I still don't know how I feel about template driven forms. I know Tim would be here like, yes, good job. Keep it going. We want more template driven forms. But yes, I've been traditionally the reactive forms, leaning towards reactive forms. But hey, it's a new project. We could try whatever we want. And that's what we kind of do. So let's see, I think I got a few more minutes. So we'll commit this. Chore log out. Log out repo. Let's look at, since we're on the Angular day here, let's take a look at OpenSauce and see. We'll change to the Angular topic here and see what it looks like. Hey, Mishko, what is he doing in here? Nice. Mishko must have contributed to a project that has an Angular tag on it. Let's check. Interesting. Maybe builder IO quick. No, not there. Maybe it's under mitosis. Angular, there it is. It's probably a PR for under mitosis for builder. That's why he shows up here, because it has Angular topic and it's a recent PR. Who else do I see? I see Jason here. Who else? some other people who are contributing that I don't know, that I don't recognize anyway, but Mishko popped up, so that's what kind of stood out. And we can kind of see what the, let's change to all because I'm pretty sure Angular should be at the top of this list of repos. Angular, activity high, +5 contributors past 30 days. So doing pretty good. Ionic team, of course, recently joined the OutSystems. I think it was OutSystem or OutSystem team. Kudos to them. Angular CLI components. Yeah, these are probably going to be high up on the list anyway, just because of stars and everything. So cool. But I'll drop that in there for the people who check it out later also. Check out some Angular repos on that. Okay, cool. I think that's probably a good stopping point for today. We got the home page up. We are logging data out from the page. Not there. We're logging data out from the page. I could probably add a title to this page just to round things out. Route meta. I don't think I've shown this much. Find route meta. Title. Contributor info. Just a way you can add additional metadata to a route. And now our title is a little more descriptive. Let's look and see what was in the other one. Yep, contributor info. Cool. So yeah, when we pick this back up, we'll at least bring it back up to where it was with the search, being able to pull some repos, um, and display them in some meaningful way. And we can see how we can build things out from there. But yeah, thanks. I see yes, hopefully you can join the next one. Please come through. For those of people who are watching later on, hit the like and subscribe. Appreciate that. Do the whole algorithm things. Helps out the channel. Then we'll definitely do some more with this and keep building this out, and of course keep building analog out. So definitely check out all the projects that I mentioned. Leave a comment if you made it through the video, or leave a comment or tell me what you think of stuff we should do, other things, projects we should build, and things like that. So, or if we should change the format altogether, you let me know. We'll see. Let's check and see if anybody's still on. We will come back. I see Bash Bunny's on. CM Griffin. He's usually my go-to raid. So we will raid him again another time. But yes, that's where we'll call this one. And I said thanks for coming through. And I will see you all. We'll be here, not next week, because it's Thanksgiving in the US. Unless I just, decide to stream on a different day next week. But we'll see. But yes, I will see you all in the next one.